recap of the season. Started with first race at the Husky Classic. I remember going into it, and I had been doing a couple time trials, and I didn't know what to expect, but I felt like I could run a solid time. I think I'm trying to remember what Jerry thought I could run. I thought he said, I could run anywhere from 15:30 down to 15 flat, and I ran right in the middle at 15:15, and I really enjoyed that race. I probably enjoyed that race a lot because I had two teammates there who were helping to pace. Courtney and Emily were so kind, and they came down and paced me, and they were just incredible. Courtney started it off at the beginning, and she was like a metronome, so she set it up really perfectly for me to have a good race, and Emily finished it in, and it was got the box ticked on that first race. Race was the Stanford Invitational. I had been training up at Mammoth Lakes with Shalane Flanagan, I was not training in Mammoth Lakes. I was training in Colorado Springs with Shalane. She was getting ready for Boston, and my mileage was, I think, around like 80 miles a week, and there's a big debate between, should I do a half marathon, should I do a 10K, and Jerry, we talked about it the whole time. I was up there training with no plan of a race, and I actually had a ton of fun. Shalane's an amazing training partner, someone who just is able to make training not easy, but you go faster than you think you are when you're running with her for some reason. She just makes it enjoyable to go for runs, and always has something fun to talk about. It's amazing when you train with somebody every day that you can have something to talk about every day. So I was training, and we didn't really know, what I was training for. Was I going to do a 10K? Was I going to do a half marathon? And Shalane was getting ready to leave for Boston, and or to go down to Portland to train for the last month before Boston, and I was still in limbo of what I was going to do, and Jerry called and said, I think you're going to do 10K, so stay up at altitude for 2 more weeks. So I did that, and then came down for Stanford, and the goal at that race was try to get some race experience in, and I was able to go there, get in the win, and it was super fun. I got to race with Carissa, who is now a Bowerman babe, so it's just fun to reflect on that and to remember that moment. race was the Pittsburgh half marathon, and I went into that really thinking and excited to have a good result. I felt like my training was going well, and I'd just done my last 2 races were the 5K and the 10K on the track, and those had gone to plan, and so I was hoping that the half marathon would go to plan as well, but it did not go to plan. There was a lot of things in that race that were different. We tried something new for the first time of traveling without Stanley, but I was still breastfeeding and I got engorged, and there was all these things that were happening that I had to think on my feet quickly and try to solve these problems. And I came out of that race and I felt like, okay, maybe I need to make some changes, and so when I decided I would start weaning Stanley and start to stop breastfeeding and go from there. So that was the half marathon. It was a beautiful course and good competition, and just wasn't the result that I was looking for. The next race was the USA 10K championships on the track, and for me, I was actually really nervous going into this race. I didn't feel very prepared. I had been up at altitude with the rest of the Bowerman babes. We were up in Mammoth Lakes, and I really struggled at that training camp. I had good workouts, which I was really banking on and counting on those coming through for me on race day. But all my other runs were I was really struggling. The surface up at Mammoth was super soft. It was high altitude. I had increased my miles. There were all these factors that were really making me fatigued, and I was really struggling up there, especially on my long runs. I couldn't even really get through more than an hour 15. I always seemed to blow up, and when I blew up, I really blew up. So for me, I look back at that time and I realized there was a few things I probably should have altered. I just tried to change too much, I think, too quickly, and I know now if I go up to Mammoth, I need to do a few of my runs on a little bit of harder surface. Just with my running form, I can really get slow, and my cadence and form can change based on the surface that I'm running on. So for me, that was a learning experience that I could take forward. Leading into Chicago, I was really excited to be able to do my first marathon, and training was going really well, and we were planning on going up to altitude. And the day before we were supposed to leave for altitude, I got a call from Jerry. Van had already been packed because Pat was going to drive up there. Tickets were purchased, accommodation was booked, and Jerry called and said, "Oh, we're not going to altitude. I think you could run faster if you stay here and continue on this path that we're doing." And I think that really, for me, I used to hate change, and I used to really get thrown when something would change last minute like that. And I think something that I really realized this year is after giving birth to Stanley, and there we can hear him talking now, after having Stanley around, I just realized that I am a little more able to kind of go with the flow, and I feel like that really helps me in my training to be able to just take whatever comes at me and deal with it and move forward. So yep, we started training for Chicago, and I did a race Peachtree and Beach to Beacon in that build up, and it was really good to be able to do those and kind of try to gain fitness from those races. Yes, I really do think I did gain fitness. You don't think so, Sam? No? No, okay. So, you know, I was able to go to Beach to Beacon, which was super fun. That was actually a beautiful race. And I got to stay with a homestay, and Joan Benoit put on the race, and it was just a really well put on, excellent race. So that was something that was kind of fun, and I went there. And when I went there, I actually had pretty low confidence. I hadn't had a good workout leading into it, and then I went there and tried to be conservative, and it was the only race all year where I was able to finish feeling really strong. So that was something that that was a positive. Then we, you know, prepared for the Chicago Marathon, went there, and training had been going really well. My workouts, I was able to hit every workout except for the very first one in the 12-week build, and I was excited to be able to go out there and hopefully have a good one. Unfortunately, the race didn't go to plan. There's a few things that just didn't really pan out, and have made me really excited to be able to do a spring marathon coming up.